Fox Sports is ready for the big game, and for the next 30 minutes, we're taking you inside.
Quiet, please, everyone. 5, 4, 3. Roll it. 2, 1, 2.
The adrenaline is there when the teams come down the tunnel on that Super Bowl Sunday.
There's a lot of nerves, there's a lot of expectations. For our profession, it's the greatest game you can call.
It's our Oscars. It's the end-all, be-all.
We all really like one another.
I love football.
The receivers are like a 4x100 relay team.
And most of all, I love these guys.
Come on in the stairwell, folks. You just try and make sure that the circus doesn't get too out of control.
Are we surprised?
He has rode that Jed Clampett Beverly Hillbillies thing all the way to the bank.
Biggest game of the year. You're going to crown a champion.
It's America's biggest sporting event, and for the 9th time, you will see it on Fox Sports. Welcome to our exclusive behind-the-scenes look, the big game, All Access Pass. I'm Martin Kilcoyne. We're going to begin here in the studio with two names synonymous with football on Fox, Terry and Howie. They've been here since day one.
It worked. This has been great for me because you're going to see golf with clean feet. I'm more about entertaining than I am about presenting X's and O's or stuff like that. It kind of gets boring to me after a while. Maybe my age has something to do with it. Howie's obviously
The straight man.
He's our straight guy. He's our good-looking guy. He's our stud muffin. And
Is he the better actor?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen Firebird?
Firestorm.
Firestorm. One of the classics.
The great thing about working here is I don't think anyone's ever said in 26 years, do this or say this.
It's not structured.
You're
like
you
that.
and I'm me, and
Right.
and the only thing they want is they want it to be kind of lighthearted and more
Entertaining.
entertaining and conversational. People never say to us on a Wednesday, "Hey, I love that football point you made." It's
They're
always,
going in and
it's
out,
always
a
the
two-man
laugh.
combo.
It's always the laugh or the gaff or when somebody screws up.
I had a gaff today.
No.
He's back, which only makes Khalil Mack. Yeah. Khalil Mack. Yeah. Much more dangerous.
Achilles.
Hey, wasn't he like one of the god of strength?
Yeah.
And if you think Terry is some sort of country bumpkin, well, Howie's got news for you.
I tell people all the time, he has rode that Jed Clampett Beverly Hillbillies thing all the way to the bank. You have bought it hook, line, and sinker. Trust me.
Trust me. No, you hear me loud and clear. See, everybody thinks because I act the way I act that it's really I'm really smart. But that's really just who I am. I'm just a simple guy. Simple.
One of the smartest people I know.
The show feels unscripted. That's because it is. There's no prompter.
God,
No.
Read a prompter?
Well, first of all, we can't read.
No, that's a problem.
You said that.
That's a problem.
When Super Bowl Sunday rolls around,
We always talk about defense in the playoffs.
do these guys approach that big game any differently?
It is not about necessarily the pregame show and the material we have, as it is about Fox showcasing its talent and its production capabilities throughout the entire football world and presenting it to the American audience and around the world. And we're proud of that. I find the Super Bowl to be very easy to do.
This is our 9th Super Bowl, and I think about the one we did down in New Orleans right after 9/11, which was pretty amazing. And U2 does halftime, and behind them playing Streets Have No Names which essentially is a huge sheet with all the names of the folks who were lost in 9/11, and it was one of the most amazing moments. And the theme for us in that pregame was the Constitution, and revisiting the founding fathers and what makes this country special. And it was all about America. And I remember Terry, the last thing he said, because we looked at St. Louis and New England over and over and over again. There was no way on God's green earth we said New England could beat them. I said, this team is just too good. And Terry, as he always does, as we're getting ready to go on the air, he makes his final pick and says, in a year like this, what this country's been through, how can't you pick the Patriots? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You picked the Patriots, and the Patriots end up winning.
The Sunday crew has grown over the years. Kurt Menefee plays the role of conductor. Jimmy Johnson, the highly decorated coach, was there, left, and came back. And the new guy, Michael Strahan, part of the team since 2008 after retiring on top, going out as a champion with the Giants.
They welcomed me with open arms. They definitely hazed me on air live, not like even behind the scenes, so they tested me early. But it was scary. I mean, these guys, I had watched this show since I was a kid, not saying how old they are, but since I was a kid, and so to be here on set and these guys are talking, and the first rehearsal, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling good, I'm talking. I'm like, oh, I got this down. The camera light come on, and everybody's energy, it was like somebody's doing kung fu, and I'm moving in slow motion, just getting the one that's getting punched in the face because it was so incredibly fast, and I was so scared, very intimidating. But now, I mean, the guys have been fantastic, and I think this is a family. This is, you come in, you fit in, and you just got to swim with them and have fun. And I think that's the thing about the job, is having fun. You can't make fun of yourself, can't make fun of your mistakes, and if you can't have a strong opinion and laugh, you won't make it.
When you left the game, you went out on top. How perfect was that? You'd been a Giant a long time, and then not only a Super Bowl, but a classic game.
Well, to win the game against the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl in Arizona with Fox and these guys calling the game was super special. And at 15 years, I was done. I was done. What was the point? I had nothing else to prove. Played as hard as I could play for as long as I could play, and enjoyed every bit of it. And I was just happy to go out on top, because who really has that happen? It's like a fairy tale ending. And on top of it, it made it easier to sit at this desk, because now these guys can say, well, Michael, you don't have a ring. Right. I was able to join the club, and it just made my career feel like it all came together and ended the way that anybody would have hoped their career could end.
When we continue on the big game, all access pass, this guy won a national championship, he won a Super Bowl. We're going to visit with...
Wait a minute, 2 Super Bowls.
He won 2 Super Bowls.
And a national championship as a player in college.
And as a player. We'll edit all this out. We're going to visit with Jimmy Johnson when we come back.
Go to 9.
Controlled chaos, that's life inside the production truck. And on this particular Sunday, even the biggest names feel the pressure.
There's a high bar in how you're supposed to perform.
Let's be honest, they're in the booth, they have a coffee maker, they also have bathrooms, and they have food.
While Joe Buck and Troy Aikman enjoy the comforts of the broadcast booth,
we've already established he doesn't like talking about himself.
Sideline reporter Aaron Andrews can't hide from the elements.
I always give them a hard time. I did New England, Dallas this year, and it was just driving rain the whole time. It was in the 30s. It was miserable. And they're up in the booth, and they're cozy, and they're warm, and I'm just like, I want to die.
Let's talk a little Lamar Jackson.
Your dad's a newsman.
Yeah.
Did he not tell you to get into a different line of work?
He did.
I tell people, don't do it.
Yeah, I asked him, I said, Dad, I want to do this when I grow up, and he told me 2 things. He said, Aaron, everybody wants to do this when they grow up. And he also said, don't do it. He's like, the pay sucks. You're not going to have a life.
When you think about being at the Super Bowl, when you're on the field, does it feel different?
Oh, gosh. My first Super Bowl I worked was the one in New York, Seattle Seahawks in Denver. I think it was before the anthem, God Bless America was, I think that's what they sang. And I started bawling because I was just like, this is unbelievable. This is an incredible experience. So yes, I know it's just a game, but we definitely get caught up in the emotions and how huge it is. And it's our Oscars. I always say to my dad, hurricane coverage, that's our hurricane coverage. Like, it's the end all be all.
Well, over 100 million people will be watching, and to put on the big game, it takes hundreds and hundreds of people behind the scenes. At the center of it all, the people calling the shots and pushing the buttons, the producer and director, who make sure you don't miss a thing. How many have you been a part of, and how many have you produced?
This will be my 6th game producing.
Ready?
I've been part of 13. This will be my 4th directing. And this will be my 15th total in different capacities.
But when it becomes Super Bowl Sunday and you're walking in the truck, is it different? Does it feel different?
Oh, it's completely different. You can't, it's silly to pretend otherwise. It takes on a certain aura, and there's an excitement and an adrenaline. You have to kind of counteract that. All right, boys, now we're at the game mode here. By being purposefully calm. The adrenaline, no question, is there. You know, when the teams come down the tunnel on that Super Bowl Sunday, I think we all get amped up. But once the ball's kicked, you have to tell yourself that it's a football game. And we're fortunate to do big games every week. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that this is not going to be anything different. Of course it's different.
How about some of the numbers? A typical Sunday game, a typical Thursday game, cameras that you'll have versus what you'll have at the Super Bowl?
For a Thursday game, I mean, we may have, 25-man, 26-man cameras, including pylons, maybe 45, 50 cameras for a Thursday game. I think for the Super Bowl, it's probably doubled. I would think that this crew is, probably, when you get to a Super Bowl, I think you're talking, 500, 600 people. The men and women, they're so terrific at what they do, and it takes a team.
How much pressure is there as a network to come up with something different or a new look or a new camera? Within the industry, is there pressure that way?
I don't know if there's pressure. I think we want to come up with new technology if it makes sense, if it's smart, if it's going to enhance the telecast. And I think we're always looking to push the envelope. We're always looking to try and come up with new technology.
In Jacksonville, our first one, we had pylon cameras. Now it's second nature. All the networks do it. Back then, maybe not so much. Well, during the pregame warm-ups, Teddy Bruschi of the Patriots was on the field with his kids, and they noticed the pylons, and they started playing with them and pulling on them. And we're thinking, oh my God, that's our innovation for today. It's going right down the toilet.
Go to 4, effect 4, and 6, and rate 2, and take 2, rate 4, and rate 1, take 4, play and roll it.
Describe this room to people. What is it like?
I say it's like organized chaos. Everybody knows their job. They all do a terrific job, but the verbiage is quick. Richie understands what I say. I know what Richie's saying.
Alan Collins will have his hands full.
We basically really have to listen to the announcers, but all of the men and women. I mean, we're talking to all the tape operators, the camera operators, video, audio. Our crew is second to none. They do such a terrific job, and it makes our job easier.
I'm glad it's every 3 years. I don't know if you were doing it every year, if you would enjoy it as much.
He's the rules guru, and before every broadcast team had one, he was the first. Plus, how long has Jimmy Johnson known Terry Bradshaw? Well, he recruited him in college. This is the big game, All Access Pass. We continue our behind-the-scenes look right here at the home of the NFL on Fox. You're watching the big game, All Access Pass. I'm Martin Kilcoyne. And calling the big game for the 6th time, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. As Aaron Andrews told us, Troy may have played the position, but on game day, Joe is the quarterback.
I'm not going to change anything for the Super Bowl. If you let your mind go to how many people are watching and listening to this thing, it can kind of mess you up.
Welcome to the booth. I'm Joe Buck. That's the Hall of Famer, Troy Aikman. Glad to have you with us.
Joe grew up in a broadcast booth, tagging along with his dad, the legendary Cardinals announcer Jack Buck. Troy winding up in the booth? Well, that's something he never saw coming.
Oh, heavens no. I never even thought I'd go into broadcasting. It was not really on my radar. It was just by happenstance that I went over to Europe and called some games as a favor to a friend of mine and ended up really enjoying it. And Fox at that time, I was still playing. It was back in 1998. Fox said, hey, we kind of like what you did, and if you want to do this when you're done playing, we've got a job for you. And that's when I first started thinking that maybe this would be a career, and here 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
And the Saints are certainly hitting this in stride.
At this point, Joe's an old pro at the big game, but were there any extra nerves for that first one he called in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I was scared to death. And first of all, thank God Troy did go into this broadcasting, because it's good to be standing next to one of your closest friends walking the planet.
Two hot teams.
I don't know that Joe's ever been stressed a moment in his life. I mean, that's how he carries himself. And that's what's so great about really working with him. I mean, he mentions the fact that we're good friends, but as you can tell, I mean, there's a vibe in our booth that's very calming and very relaxing.
Aikman is a 3-time champion, winning the Lombardi as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. So he's been a part of the big game for years.
So let me ask you there, Mr. Expert.
There's a lot of similarities, quite honestly, between playing in that game and then getting ready as a broadcaster and calling the game.
3 years ago on Fox, it was the epic comeback by the Patriots in a game the Falcons were dominating.
At halftime, I said, man, I was really disappointed. I said, I remember when we used to get really great Super Bowl games. And then when Matt Ryan had the fumble, I thought, wow, that's the only way that New England can kind of get back into this ball game. And then obviously it turned into one of the really classic games. But the Patriots and the Giants with the David Tyree helmet catch, we were there for that one. So I think when it's all said and done, the greatness about the Super Bowls is that unlike other games we do, people forget about those games. These are forever archived. I knew that as a player. Certainly understand that as a broadcaster.
This one has the makings of really a fun one and one I'm looking forward to covering.
And to be the soundtrack for some really great moments is pretty awesome. You know, for our profession, it's the greatest game you can call.
There's another person in that booth with Joe and Troy. That's Mike Pereira, the first official ever hired to work inside a network broadcast booth.
Well, I think I am the pioneer because I was the first. I think it's the right thing because the rules are complicated, and really for a fan to truly enjoy the game, they need to understand how it's officiated. The only thing that upsets me is I was the first. I was each one of these guys' bosses in New York, and I got this job and now they've got it, and I just asked for 10% of their check. I got nothing. I've gotten nothing from them yet.
How about Super Bowl Sunday? Any extra pressure? Does it feel different to you?
Totally different. You know, I think on Super Bowl Sunday, I become more, I shouldn't say this, but I think I become more of the head of officiating because I worry so much about the game. And I also know the pressure that is going to be on these 7 guys that are on the field. It's different. They know that there are 120 million eyes on them. And I remember the Santonio Holmes catch in the end zone. Field judge Greg Gotro makes that call, and it's a tough call. And he's right. And it decides the Super Bowl. And I literally ran down to because I was still head of officiating at the time, I ran down to the locker room, and he was sitting in a chair, and I just looked at him and said, Greg, that is the greatest call I have seen anybody ever make in a Super Bowl. And he literally broke down in tears and cried because there's just, the pressure on you is incredible.
The Fox studio is filled with championship rings, but Jimmy Johnson is the only one to win the game twice as a head coach.
Walking out on that field, and the Jets going over, Michael Jackson was going to play at a halftime. You know, it was just a feeling of pride.
Everybody is just themselves, and we just watch football together. We're all friends.
Keeping this whole crew on track could be a daunting job, but for the host, Kurt Menefee, he says it works for a simple reason.
You know, we genuinely love one another. We text each other. We have a good time throughout the week, throughout the year. So when we show up on Sunday, we're just 5-6 guys, counting Jay, having fun talking football. That little blade of fake grass is why we love football so much.
So if I told 14-year-old Kurt Menefee that he'd be sitting alongside Terry Bradshaw and Howie Long, that's how he'd make a living. He'd be going to Super Bowls. Would that be beyond his wildest dreams?
Beyond a dream. I mean, not even close. I mean, I was a kid who grew up in Atlanta and, you know, watched football as a fan. But I mean, you know, I never even got to go to a game. To tell me that I'm sitting here with these Hall of Famers on the football field and then Hall of Famers in broadcasting and the legends as they are, and just to be even remotely affiliated with them in any way is beyond anything I could have made up at the age of, forget 14, at the age of 24 or 34.
The resume of Jimmy Johnson, pretty impressive, winning as a player, national champion in college, and as a head coach at both levels. Champion at Miami, and also 2 titles with the Dallas Cowboys, and for many years a key member of the highly successful Fox NFL Sunday. The Jimmy Johnson resume is both fascinating and fearless. In the NFL, he had 2 head coaching jobs. Each time, he replaced a legend. First, Tom Landry in Dallas, then Don Shula in Miami. Along the way, winning 2 titles.
I remember my first Super Bowl, we knew we were going to win the game. We knew we were better than Buffalo. And so walking out on that field, and the Jets going over, Michael Jackson was going to play at a halftime, you know, it was just a feeling of pride, you know, that I said, hey, I'm going to get a Super Bowl ring, going to put it on my finger after this game.
We know you were teammates with Jerry Jones back in the day. Did you see him back then becoming this mega owner?
No, I knew Jerry would be an outstanding businessman, and that's what he was, you know. He was out selling tickets and driving a Cadillac, you know, when he was, you know, there in college. So we knew he was going to do great in business.
This guy that I see on Fox each week, it's taken me many years to get to know that guy because that's not the one that I grew up with.
I can't tell you how many times they'll be doing something in the pregame, And he and I will be standing here watching it with our headsets on, and they're yucking it up, and Jimmy's, wearing a big gold chain and pulling out a huge fork and whatever. And he looks at me like, we used to fear him.
As a coach, I was a taskmaster, and so I was a very strict disciplinarian. I wanted our teams to be extremely disciplined. But here, we're having fun with Fox NFL Sunday.
Janis Joplin was this is in Wikipedia. I hope it's correct.
Right, oh yeah, Janis.
What do you remember about her?
Well, we sat together, in classes, and we used to kind of, kid her a little bit, all the jocks. I actually gave her the nickname Beat Weeds, and because she was kind of hippie and all that stuff, But yeah, she ended up being a great singer. I didn't even realize she was singing back then. She was going over into Louisiana singing.
Coach, on behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And now Jimmy can update that resume. He's headed to Canton.
It's my great honor to tell you that you're going to be the 328th Hall of Famer into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And your legacy is going to be in Canton, Ohio forever. Congratulations, Coach. Congratulations.
From the personalities to the production, there's a lot of moving parts on game day. And just like football, it takes a winning team. We want to thank everybody at Fox Sports for letting us go behind the scenes for the big game, All Access Pass. I'm Martin Kilcoyne. Now you sit back and enjoy the big game on Fox.